It is rivalry week, and there have been so many great games when it comes to Ohio State and Michigan. I do believe it is the greatest rivalry in college football. And right now, we're going to talk about our favorite games, joined by Dave Holmes and Adam King of 10 TV, and Bobby Carpenter and Anthony Rothman from 97.1 The Fan. And Dave, we're going to start with you. Okay. Your favorite game of the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry.
I went back and forth between Game of the Century, Troy Smith, but I'm going with this one, 2016, because we had never seen overtime in the history of this game. And I get OT only came in, I believe, in 96, so there's a little bit of history there. But we had never seen overtime. Then we get 2 overtimes. Then we get Curtis Samuel, which might have been one of the loudest ovations in the history of the shoe. You get Urban Meyer falling over in joy and agony at the same time. You get Jim Harbaugh wanting to bust out the tape measure. There are so many memes and memories and just moments and images that live there. And watching Harbaugh, who wanted it so badly, just whine after the game about that spot is something that will live in infamy around these parts. So for me, it's Curtis Samuel, double overtime.
Yeah, and I think it was the only time they ever had overtime in that series. All right, Bobby Carpenter, you played in the game. Your favorite game?
Well, we lost one, so that was eliminated. 02 was a tough one to eliminate. 04, because that's one of the unexpected victories where the better team probably doesn't always win. But I had to go with 2005. It's a game I broke my ankle in. I only got to play one play in that game. And people always ask, do you regret how it went down? Like, I would have traded that ankle every day of the week to watch how that game ended, to watch Troy Smith to Anthony Gonzalez capped it off with the Antonio Pittman touchdown, watching Gonzo, though, climb the ladder, Troy evade rushers. He acts like he's going to run, backs up, throws it over the top. Yeah. It's one of the truly remarkable plays I've ever seen in my life, and I had a front row seat for it, and my best friends were able to do it, and it was an unbelievable experience to get our first win, because we didn't get it in 03, the first win up there, and to just hear that whole 110,000 go silent. Yeah.
Beating those guys, I mean, you've had so many big moments. Where does beating those guys rank for you?
Well, that's right up there at the top. Winning those, just being here, coming fresh out of the 90s, and watching and experiencing those defeats, and knowing now, Mike Vrabel, Luke Fickell, Andy Katzenmoyer, Joey Galloway, Dee Miller, all these guys that were part of some fantastic teams who they may have one pair of gold pants, maybe a second. Some of them don't have any. And they were so good, and couldn't get it done at the end. So it meant so much to be able to do it. In 05, Eddie George was up there in the stadium with us. We may have done a little round afterwards of shots in the locker room, getting Eddie involved. And he's like, I never got one of these up here. He was as happy as he was probably the day he got drafted to get that victory.
That's awesome.
All right, Anthony, your turn.
I've got a couple. I just want to pay homage to Bob here in that because we did not plan this. I've got 2 of them. The 05 highlight. And I'll detail it even a little more. Ohio State's down to under a minute to go at the Michigan 30. Was Houston your field goal kicker?
Yeah.
Josh Houston was the field goal kicker. He had missed a 46-yarder earlier in the fourth quarter, so you didn't want to maybe rely on that. He had made 2 others in the game. And that highlight he's talking about, maybe the greatest highlight in the history of the rivalry for me, where Troy is – these are 2 locomotives going at each other. I think David Harris was the linebacker, and Troy Smith is going into that hole on first down. And I don't know how they didn't collide. Troy puts his left foot in the ground, jumps to his right. Harris goes to the ground. Gonzo, his buddy, riding Grant Mason's shoulder while he's catching it to the ground inside the 5 that leads to the Pittman touchdown. It's great. My very first year covering the rivalry was 1994. Coop, you better get this one. You're at home.
Right.
You're playing a team that you really need to beat now. They wind up winning the game. The place is going crazy. I'm down there, and the fans are going to rush the field in 94. This is Coop's first win. And the last minute, he was celebrating. The game was over. Jack Arute for ABC is down there. He's yelling, "We're getting tear gassed." They start spraying the fans because they're rushing the midfield. Coop is going out. I'm pretty sure it was Matt Bonhouse and Randall Brown, 2 defensive linemen. Randall, I think, is a senior from Detroit, playing for Ohio State, that finally gets a victory. They pick up Coop on his shoulders, and they're carrying him to Lloyd Carr. And they get within about 5 yards to Lloyd, and I don't know whether he slid off the shoulder pads or whether they thought we're just going to let him down now. And now he's down there in the sea of fans. And I'm thinking to myself, He finally beat Michigan, and he's going to get trampled by his own team. And Jack Arute is yelling, Musburger on the broadcast, where's the coach? Find the coach. And they finally locate him, and then they do the interview. And people, 100,000 people, were more excited to be tear gassed than any year that ever existed. 94, my first year in that stadium, Coop's first win, and for him to celebrate it was big time. It was one of the wildest experiences I've ever had covering a game.
And I love Coop. That was one of my choices as well.
By the way, real quickly, ABC named players of the game. Guess who was the player of the game for Ohio State? John Cooper. They gave it to a coach.
Wow. Awesome. That's pretty cool.
Your turn, Adam.
Well, Dave kind of touched on it for a second. I think the ending of the season may have kind of tainted this win a little bit, but the game of the century, it has to be the game of the century. 1 versus 2. I mean, I don't think there's any Buckeye fans really that don't remember Troy Smith running out there on senior day, hugging Tress, and then the Buckeyes just went to work. It was how they had won every game that season. You've got Troy Smith letting it fly to Ted Ginn. I mean, it was just such a memorable moment. The fans stormed the field the last time they had that grass. Obviously, what happened against Florida, everybody kind of ties those two together. But in that moment, to beat number 2 Michigan, the conversation, if they were going to meet again in the national championship game, I just feel like that has to be the greatest
What
game.
happened against Florida? I turned it off after it was 7-0.
There you go.
I didn't see
That's
the end
great.
of it.
You finished at a great part.
Yeah, I didn't see the end of it.
You know, I agree with all these guys, but I got a couple, too, I'm going to add. 1987, and Earl Bruce got fired earlier in the week. They were going to actually do it after the game, but Rick Bay, who was the athletic director, came out on Monday and said, you know, they're going to fire Earl Bruce. And that week was like nothing I'd ever seen before. They go up to Ann Arbor. Ohio State was a big-time underdog. And I'll never forget that they come out, and Earl's in his black suit and the fedora. And all the players have these headbands on, these white headbands that said Earl. And, you know, I became very close with Earl after he quit coaching. And he just said, I come out and I see these things, and I go, what the heck is that on? And you know how Earl was.
He didn't allow headbands.
And, he goes, what are you? And then he said, I saw they had my name on it. I said, well, that's okay. And they won the game, and I'll never forget that Bo Schembechler went to the locker room and told Earl, you know, I never like losing to you guys, but today I don't mind it so much. And that was the respect. They carried him off the field. The other one, and it's folklore, but 1968. You know, it was
Rex Kern.
Yeah, and they beat Michigan that year 50-14, and it's folklore. I don't know that Woody actually said it after the game, but I think he embraced it as it went on.
Yeah.
But he was asked after the game why he went for 2. You know, they scored a touchdown, and it made it 50-14. They didn't make the conversion, but he went for 2, and they failed. But they asked him after the game, why did you go for 2? And he said, well, my kicker was hurt and my center was hurt and whatever. But then it evolved into the folklore because why'd you go for 2? Because they wouldn't let me go for 3. Yeah. And, you know, it just has made this rivalry. And I think it's funny because you think about what's neat about that is Urban Meyer's last game with the Buckeyes, which is another one against Michigan. You know, they beat him, put 62 points on him. And if you'll remember, he's driving towards the end of the game.
He wanted it. He wanted 70.
And Thayer Mumford, I think, got hurt.
Demetrius Knox, I believe.
Demetrius Knox got hurt. And so he said, wait a minute, but Urban has told me on a couple occasions, he goes, we were thinking we were going to go and score. And then I'm thinking about Woody and going for, and he says, we thought about going for, so I asked him point blank, I said, and we were doing an interview, I said, if you scored, would you have gone for 2? And he gets that smirk and he goes, no comment. You know he would have.
Absolutely.
He would have.
One of the other iconic moments in this is Coop's second win in '98. Yeah. You talked about the grass in '06. That was the last time the field was at ground level. Yeah. And so that was the field that they had played on for so many years. And I was in the stands as a fan pouring out on there and watching people take shovels, knowing that they're going to dig it out afterwards and dig the grass out. They're putting it in their pockets and taking it home, planting it in their yards and everything.
I have some of it in my basement.
Absolutely. I pulled out a little patch.
Dom had the
put it in
shovel.
there. Yes.
I have some in my basement.
It was amazing to see, and you think all the history of Ohio Stadium, and that was the field level all the way from 22, 21 when it opened, and to see it dug down, everybody wanted a little piece of it on that day.
Well, I think when you look at the memory you talk about, the going for two, the urban, thinking about going for two if they could have scored, I think it perfectly exemplifies the rivalry. I mean, that's what it is. It's what he's saying. I couldn't go for three. And that's the hate and also respect that Ohio State and Michigan have that makes it, well, the game.
It's the greatest
I think
game.
you respect the hate,
Yeah.
right? Meaning, because you can't tell me that going for two at that moment is respect.
Yeah.
It's not.
You do that with your
how
roommate in Madden.
I've always put it this way. This rivalry, I respect the hate.
Yeah.
That's how I've always put it.
And that's why it is the greatest rivalry in all of college football. And, of course, in the big house, the Buckeyes and the Wolverines. And we will have you covered. Keep it on 10 TV and 97.1 The Fan for all your Ohio State Michigan coverage.